She rolled a body as carelessly as a cooper might an empty barrel and began to root through the pockets with quick fingers. "You're the last man I'd have thought would get coy around the carcass." "My interest in the dead is to plumb the very mysteries of creation, not to procure loose change." But Baptiste was pretending not to listen. Balthazar gave a heavy sigh, hooked his hands under a corpse of approximately the right dimensions, and gingerly rolled it over. A young officer, clammy with morning dew, good look somewhat spoiled by a yawning axe wound in his skull. Balthazar squatted and began to unlace one boot. "Damn it!" The knots were exceedingly tight. Hardly surprising, perhaps. Balthazar would have tied his laces securely had he been charging into battle, which he would, of course, never have been fool enough to do. "Damn it!" His fingers were exceedingly numb. Hardly surprising either, since he had spent the afternoon being buffeted in the ocean, and those few clothes he had managed to retain were still damp with chilly sea-water. "Damn it!" "Well?" Baptiste stood over him, hands on hips. She had procured a pair of shiny horseman's knee boots, complete with brass spurs, and an extravagant military coat, only lightly splattered with blood from a hole above the breast, beneath which the hilts of 4 assorted daggers bristled from a purple sash. Apart from a few damp curls, which he suspected she had left loose on purpose, she had managed to contain her ever-rebellious hair in a leather forester's cap, sporting a bedraggled feather. Balthazar gazed up astonished. However much he might have wanted to, there was no denying that, yet again, she looked spectacular. "How the hell have you managed all this? I haven't even got his boots off yet." She worked the sash down her hips for a more rakish tilt. "I spent a bit of time as a corpse robber." "How incredibly unsurprising," he muttered, deeply conscious of how ludicrous he must look at that moment by comparison, picking angrily at the knots on the other boot, then cursing as he bent a fingernail the wrong way. "During some local unpleasantness in Prussia." Baptiste rolled up her embroidered cuffs. "It's more art than science, really. You're just—" and she narrowed her eyes and rubbed her fingertips against her thumbs, "feeling out the good stuff." She slid an overblown man's signet ring onto her middle finger. "What do you think?" "I think you're ready to seal some very important letters." "Not for the first time. I used to melt wax for the Duke of Aquitaine, in fact." "You amaze me." He forced through gritted teeth, tugging harder at the knots. "He'd sign hundreds at once," she said, bending over a face-down corpse. "Administrative nonsense, mostly. Couple of love letters. Got through a lot of wax." She gripped both trouser legs. "After a day of that, you'd end up with sticky fingers, I can tell you." "A regular occurrence for you, I have no doubt." "Didn't last long at it." And Baptiste whipped the trousers clean off with one skillful jerk. "The Duke could be rather handsy." "Dukes often are, I understand." "Ah!" as the knots finally gave, and Balthazar was able to work the second boot from its dead owner's foot. Baptiste tossed the trousers to him. "Those should fit you." He was obliged to sit in the sodden grass to wriggle into them, unpleasantly clammy about the thigh, then started dragging on the boots. "Damn it! Blasted! Bloody things are too small!" He flung one away, and it bounced through the grass, rolling to a stop at the feet of one of the human carrion, a particularly ill-favoured example of a generally ill-favoured profession, sporting a bumper crop of facial warts. He looked from boot to Balthazar with a belligerent scowl. Balthazar scowled back with no greater affection as he stalked barefoot to another body and squatted beside it. "I generally adore receiving unexpected visitors, but I find burglarizing the dead is like taking one's toilet, best done without an audience." The man gave a squint of warty befuddlement. "This is all ours," he grunted. "Impressive." Balthazar glanced about the valley. "You killed the whole lot?" No, but— The wart collector folded his arms, waxing more bellicose by the moment. We found 'em. It's a battlefield. You can't lay claim to it like a gold strike. We're not subject to mining law here. Baptiste, could you explain to this gentleman? He with you? Growled the man whose warts had warts. Baptiste produced an expression of intense innocence. No mean feat for a woman freshly decked out in dead men's finery. Never saw him before, she said. Balthazar gritted his teeth. My thanks for your unflinching support. Perhaps half a dozen corpse pickers had gathered now, a couple brandishing weapons salvaged from the fallen. A woman with an old cloth wrapped around her head pointed at Balthazar with a short sword. Who the fuck does this bastard think he is? Aye. The warts around the man's mouth performed an intricate dance as his lip twisted. Who the fuck do you think you are, bastard? Balthazar frowned. Perhaps finally putting trousers back on, albeit those of a dead man, had restored some hint of his old confidence. Perhaps Baptiste's many barbs had finally worn through his frayed patience. Or perhaps he had simply endured one humiliation too many, and the contempt of such contemptible dregs as these was too much to bear. A bubble of cold fury rose within his breast, while in the grass around his feet the dead began to twitch in sympathy. Who do I? Balthazar slowly rose, and the thieves shrank against each other in predictable horror as perhaps 24 corpses jerked, wobbled, and tottered up with him, all apart from one unfortunate trooper who had lost a leg and kept falling over. Think I am? The blade dropped from the woman's limp fingers as the young officer turned towards her, fluid bubbling from his nose as his lungs spluttered into reflexive action with a sound like a punctured bellows, a string of brains hanging from the yawning wound in his skull. My name is Balthazar Sham Ivam Drexy. He pronounced each syllable with withering precision. And you should know that I teeter on a lethal precipice at the very limit of my patience. Now, he stepped towards the stunned wart collector, so close their toes were almost touching. It appeared, from a cursory essay, that their feet were of comparable dimensions. I think you may be wearing my boots. Bit by a Monk. This way, said Viga, striding on through the dunes, enjoying how the sandy grass and grassy sand felt twixt her toes. She'd always been happiest by the water. Beaches and coves and harbours and wharves. That crinkly ribbon of the world where land and sea meet, and fight and fuck, and grind each other into new shapes, like ill-matched lovers in an endless stormy romance neither can ever escape. The thought of that style of romance set off a bit of a tickle, in fact. She vaguely remembered being upset about something, but it hardly seemed worth groping around in all the horrible mess in her memory just so she could feel upset about it again. Whenever she went looking for something in her head, she never came out with anything she wanted, like diving for oysters in a fucking midden. Better to let it go. Like nutshells, she muttered. Nutshells? Asked Brother Diaz. Viga grinned sideways. Exactly. He'd a fine long stride when he actually used all his legs and didn't weigh himself down with his prayers and his doubts and his saints and whatever. Who'd have thought, when we first met at that inn, we'd end up getting such an understanding? Brother Diaz puffed out his cheeks. Life brims over with surprises. You look different, she said, out of your monk sack. It's called a habit. Then it's a bad habit. Ha! Bad habit! 'Cause you see— Yes, he said, I see. You're not laughing. There aren't many jokes about the life of a monk that a monk won't have heard 1,000 times. He gave a rather wistful sigh. In the monastery, there's plenty of time to think of them." "Well, whatever you call it, you look different out of it," said Viga. "More—" She dug for the word, but got distracted by the way his damp shirt kept sticking and unsticking to his side with each step. She could see the shape of his ribs through it. Then they were gone. Then they were back. Then gone, like they were winking. Good ribs they were. Gone. Back. She realized he was watching her. "More what?" "Exactly. It's like they put you in sacks to make you look bad." "I imagine that's precisely why they do it. It's been a while since I wore anything but the sack. I never even wanted to be a monk." "Who'd have thought, when we first met at that inn, we'd have so much in common," said Viga. "I never even wanted to be a werewolf." "How did it happen?" "Usual way, bit by a werewolf." And she undid the top couple of buttons on her shirt, which honestly were more or less undoing themselves, so she could peel it back to show him her shoulder and the mottled ring of scars with the rings of runes around it. "Still aches sometimes, when the moon's full." "It's true, then?" asked Brother Diaz, peering over. She might have been imagining it, but she could have sworn his eyes strayed away from the bite a bit. "What they say about werewolves and the moon?" Viga stopped, closing her eyes. Just the word. Moon. She saw it on the inside of her lids, at its roundest and most swollen, hanging in the black with its soft and sultry silvery glow, like a great ripe fruit in the sky, ready to burst with the sweetest juice. And she made a little noise, not quite a howl, but a sort of whimpery coo, and shivered all the way from her hair to her tippy-toes. "Oh, it's true," she whispered. "Right," said Brother Diaz, and cleared his throat. "And you?" she asked, setting off again, doing up the hard-pressed buttons. "To me, it's only the moon." "No, I mean, how'd you become a monk?" "The usual way. Bit by a monk." She stared sideways. "Really?" "No, not really." "Ah, who'd have thought, when we first met at that inn, you'd turn out such a joker?" And she thumped him playfully on the arm, which it looked like he didn't at all enjoy. She never could quite learn the lesson that punching people wasn't always a good thing. She made a note to remember that, then right off forgot and thumped him again. "I took the vows," he said, rubbing his arm. "I chose to take them." "Saw the light, did you?" Brother Diaz kicked at the grassy sand. "Something like that." "I'd like to see the light," said Viga. "Folk keep trying to show it to me, but you can't just choose to see it, can you? And I can't help thinking, all the while I'm looking, that if you'll wake up one day and see the light, who's to say you won't wake up the next day and see a different one?" "Well, a thing's either true or not," said Brother Diaz, but with a kind of puzzled frown. "It doesn't all depend on who you ask, does it?" "It does a bit. I mean, even the saved in the West and the saved in the East are in spasm or whatever." "Schism. Like I said. What is fun, anyway?" "A great rupture and disagreement between the two arms of the Church over the tripartite nature of God and the precise wording of the creed and whether one should take the circle or the wheel as the holy symbol, and whether priests should be women in the image of the Saviour or men in the image of her Father, and, of course, some particularly bitter arguments over the calculation of the date of Easter." He sounded like he was getting a bit confused himself, and he was a monk. "There's no point digging too far into the details. Lord be praised. But the Pope excommunicated the Patriarch. Then the Patriarch excommunicated the Pope. Or was it the other way around?" "Whichever. You've got two voices of God on earth shouting over each other right there." She held up 2 fingers, then kept on counting them off. Then you've got the followers of the 5 lessons, and the doubters too. Then there's cults of this saint or that, and your angel or mine, and all kinds of pagans and druids and shaman and spirit worshippers and demon worshippers, before we even get to the elves and whatever dark and hungry many-faced fuckers they worship. She'd run out of fingers somewhere and was going back the other way, so she threw up her hands instead. They're all certain as can be they've got the truth, but they've each got a different truth, don't they? Still, I'm a well-known fucking idiot, what do I know? If you've seen the light, I'm happy for you. The world's a dark enough place for doubt. I didn't become a monk because I saw the light, snapped Brother Diaz, which was a timely refresher, because Viga had fully forgot where this conversation began. I made a mistake. You became a monk by mistake? I would have asked what the sect was all about before. No, I made a mistake, so I had to become a monk. Viga felt a faint tingling of interest. Did you kill someone, Brother Diaz? No, I won't judge. I myself have killed several people. I've seen you kill at least 36 with my own eyes. I didn't kill anyone. What did you steal? Was it candlesticks? Was it pie? Was it— Hold on, I'll get it. Are you just going to list everything there is? Viga shrugged. We've got time. Brother Diaz closed his eyes. I didn't steal anything. Was it bacon? The mention of pie had made her thoughts stray towards food. No. Cheese? She asked hopefully. Peas? I got a girl pregnant, barked Brother Diaz. He gave a long sigh and said, much more softly, There you are. That's the awful truth. Why hide it out here? He tipped his head back and bellowed it at the sky. I got a girl pregnant, whipped away instantly on the wind and gone. The wrong girl, he added gloomily. The most wrong girl available. Brother Diaz, murmured Viga. Are you hiding a lustful past? No. He looked straight back at her. I'm telling you about it right to your face. I was reckless in my youth, and I got the wrong girl pregnant. My mother said a monk's vows were the only way out, for my redemption, for my protection, to spare my family from embarrassment. Ah. Viga still had some water squelching deep in one of her ears, and she stuck her finger in and waggled it about. I'm a bit disappointed. Who'd have thought, grunted Brother Diaz, when we first met at that inn, you and my mother would have so much in common. Not by you, by your crimes. Viga tried tipping her head one way, then the other, but the water wasn't shifting. I mean, being what I am, I've heard of and seen and, done some really diabolical outrages. Viga gave up waggling and thumped her ear with the heel of her hand. Fucking the wrong girl? I wouldn't put it on the list of the most shameful secrets I've heard. I wouldn't even put it near the list. Ah! The bubble burst in her ear, and that delicious trickle of warm water came tickling out. Ha! I got it. What were we talking about? The wrong girl, murmured Brother Diaz. Right, yes. You've got to shrug it off, toss it away. And Viga wiped out her ear and flicked away the water. Like nutshells? He grunted. Exactly. And she thumped him again. When you've eaten the nuts, you don't keep the shells, do you? Till you're dragging sacks of the bastards up every hill, till you're sleeping in a great heap of the fuckers. The details of the story were already fading. As far as Viga was concerned, there was just one important lesson to take away from it. Brother Diaz's cock worked. Ah, look, she said, pointing to some rubbish scattered on the beach. Must have floated from the wrecks. The others might have floated here too. Brother Diaz hurried towards it. A big chest sat on the sand, ringed by scattered footprints, lock broken and lid pushed back. Clothes, he said, peering in. Viga dragged a jacket up, bright cloth all covered in glinting thread. "The clothes of a fancy bastard." She sniffed it, and she sniffed around the chest, and she bent down to sniff the footprints, too. "Alex was here." "You know her smell?" "I know everyone's smell." "Everyone has a smell?" "Oh, yes." Brother Diaz glanced down at himself. "Do I?" "Oh, yes." "Sonny was here, too." "What does Sonny smell of?" "You know, sort of salty, that salty elf smell. They weren't alone, either." She dropped to her hands and knees to get her nose to the ground and her tongue out so she could really taste it. "Men. Several men. Several badly washed men." "What were they after?" asked Brother Diaz. "Were they chasing Princess Alexia?" "I'm a werewolf," said Viga, frowning up at him. "Not a clairvoyant." "No, right, sorry." "We did have a clairvoyant once, but not for long. The thing I learned is it's usually better not to know. They went this way." She loped on a few paces, still bent over, then sat on her haunches to sift at the wind. "Maybe being careful, maybe being chased." She crept up a dune and snuffled at the scratty grass where the scent was stronger. "They waited here, then headed that way." She nodded towards the trees, then froze, narrowing her eyes. "What is it?" "Something else." She crawled, sniffling around the hollow, pushing away salty sea and salty elf and scared princess and the distracting scent of Brother Diaz, and her lips curled back, her nostrils flared. She felt the wolf awake, prowling within the cage of her ribs, scratching to be released, and its growl came from deep in her throat, a long, low, warning throb. "What do you smell?" whispered Brother Diaz, looking slightly scared. Viga glared up at him and snarled the word, turned to a slurred gurgle by the angry spit rushing into her mouth. "Werewolf!" The current set of enemies. Sonny crouched in the damp brush in the gathering darkness towards sunset and kept watch on her current set of enemies. 4 men, a woman, and a werewolf. She spent a lot more of her time than she'd have liked holding her breath while slinking, skulking, and slithering through wet vegetation. Also muddy crawl spaces, cobwebby attics, ditches, cellars, and sewers. She'd much rather have been sitting in plain sight in a dry room in a comfy chair, breathing easily and having her opinions taken very seriously, like Cardinal Zizka. But Jacob had been right. They weren't going to make an enemy of God a cardinal, and it was high time she accepted it. Who gets to pick their place after all? You just get crammed into the slot the world finds for you on account of your luck and what you're good at. Sonny was a natural spy, with the shittest luck imaginable. So she kept low, like usual, in the shadows, like usual, her breath mostly held and her shoulders mostly hunched against the cold, peering through the wet fronds towards the fire. The 4 men and the woman sat on one side of it, talking a bit, passing a bottle, tending to a steaming pot, and sharpening quite the arsenal of weapons. The werewolf sat apart on the other side, and all he had was a little knife, firelight winking on its blade as he whittled a stick. Not a particularly sinister pastime, but he managed to make it off-putting as stacking skulls. Maybe once you know someone might at any moment turn into a slavering, bull-sized monster, everything he does seems sinister. Sonny sighed from right down in her stomach. For her, making a friend could take years, but new enemies popped up like mushrooms after the rain. Glance out your window in the morning, and there they were, by the dozen. Not that she had a window, of course. They mostly kept her in a cellar. Talking of mushrooms, she tugged up a few more of the nun's worries scattered among the roots and added them to her handful. This many wouldn't kill anyone who ate them, but they'd be far too busy shitting water to chase any would-be empresses. or any invisible elves for that matter. She was wondering about the best way to sneak them into the stew when her ears pricked up at hoofbeats, and she held her breath and wriggled deeper among the roots. The 4 men and the woman reached for weapons, but when they saw riders come from the trees into the light, they gave the sort of grins you give folk you're expecting. More enemies, then. Sunny gently shook her head. Given how hard she tried to be liked, it was amazing how she could stack 'em up. She counted 8 riders, led by a man with a great golden cloak gathered up high across his shoulders and trailing over the hindquarters of a skittish warhorse. Sunny learned in the circus you can usually judge a person's character from how they treat their animals. The way this cloaked fellow wrenched the reins around made her reckon him quite the arsehole, and his comrades looked no better. There was a tall, gaunt, lank-haired bastard who glowered at everything like he was thinking of eating it, and a pair of smirking women with identical shaved heads, angular as anvils, who had quite the sorceress flavour. So she was up to 14 enemies, purposeful, powerful, and prepared. Staying in the damp brush had rarely seemed so appealing, but if she did nothing, they'd catch Alex tomorrow, or maybe the day after. So Sunny dragged a breath to the deepest corners of her lungs, closed her fingers tight around her nun's worries, and scurried closer. "Duke Sabas!" called the bastard with the corkscrew, standing up with a salesman's grin. "Where are the others?" asked the one with the cloak, and his voice was all silk and honey. So he was Sabas. Alex's cousins certainly had some extravagance when it came to tailoring. Sunny would have liked more extravagance in her tailoring, but spying really demands a low-key look. "Jenny the Promise and her boys are up the coast," said Corkscrew, "and Angelo's lot went searching the other way," as if the odds hadn't been bad enough already. "We've sent people to bring 'em back." The man paused a moment, licking his lips as he glanced at the werewolf. "Now the Dane's got her scent." "She's not alone," said the Dane, not even looking up from his whittling. His voice was icebergs crashing into an angry bear pack, and it made Sunny's neck hairs prickle. "Who's with her?" asked one of the sorceress twins, firelight gleaming in her narrowed eyes. "By the smell, an elf." Werewolves have deadly keen noses. Viga could sniff Sunny out even when she couldn't see her. She said she had a salty elf smell, which Sunny found rather unfair, as Viga smelled like a damp haystack. So she made sure she stayed well downwind as she wriggled through the grass closer to the fire. "An elf?" sneered the gaunt man. "Here?" Now the Dane peered up from his knife, firelight catching the warnings tattooed onto his craggy face. "I know what an elf smells like," he growled, now with an added hint of slobber. "That salty elf smell." "God damn it," mouthed Sunny, tempted to sniff her pits to prove him wrong. "Well," Sabas perched himself beside the fire, folds of golden cloth spilling around him, "I dare say you can handle one little girl and one salty elf." "Oh, we'll see," breathed Sunny, as the mercenaries competed to give the braggiest laughs, and she sucked in another breath, even longer, and held it as she stole across the open towards the horses. A young lad had their saddles off and was roping them together, but they sensed her coming and stirred uneasily. Sabas's big stallion nickering and nipping at the mare beside him. The lad patted them, shushed them fondly, and Sunny felt a bit sorry for him. Someone always ends up with the blame. She'd been lumbered with far more than she deserved in her time, but she felt less sorry for him than she'd have felt being ridden down by that warhorse. So she leaned forwards and took the grip of his dagger, then flicked his ear so he whipped around, taking the scabbard with him and leaving her holding the drawn blade. She ducked under his arm while he looked about, rubbing his ear, then got down on his knees with some rope to hobble the horses. He did a very conscientious job of it, too, tugging the knots tight and checking each one thoroughly. His problem was that Sunny was following along behind him, ribs starting to ache from holding her breath so long, sawing through each one with his own dagger as soon as he finished it. He stood, slapping his palms together, very pleased with his work. Sunny slipped up next to the stallion, making it dance, one eye rolling towards her. "What the—" The lad had spotted his empty scabbard. Then he saw the hobbles on the nearest horse were cut. Then he saw they were all cut. Stealing the horses would have been much the best thing, but now they were all riled and jostling and had no saddles, and the bastards at the fire were looking over. Sometimes you've just got to toss your plans away and blow with the wind. So as the lad started towards the horses, Sunny gave an apologetic wince, stuck out one boot to hook his shin, and sent him sprawling in the grass. Then she gave an even more apologetic wince and smacked Sabas's horse across the rump hard as she could. It reared and was off like a shot, cut hobbles flapping. Roped together still, the others tore off with it in a whinnying crowd. "You damn fool!" snarled Sabas, jumping up, and Sunny had to do a little spin around him to keep from being barged. She could have stabbed him as he passed, but Sunny never liked to stab people if she could avoid it. In her experience, the more people you stab, the sooner you end up stabbed yourself. "Get the horses!" snarled the gaunt man, waving at the others. "Not my fault," the boy was shrieking. "Someone stole my dagger." "She's here." Of a sudden, the Dane was looming over Sunny, big as a house, white shavings from his whittling scattered down his front. "The elf. I smell her." Sunny could smell him, too. Even holding her breath, he had a haystack reek more pungent than Viga's. He jerked his head to one side, took a sudden step forwards, and Sunny had to duck under his sweeping arm and slip around behind him. Her lungs were bursting now, so she grabbed one quick breath while his bulk was screening her from the others, who were fully occupied tearing after the horses in any case. Then she tiptoed around in an arc, staying behind him as he slowly turned. "Where are you, mischief-maker?" he growled, and she could hear him snuffling at the air, sniffling for her scent. "Come out, little Loki." "She has hidden herself," snapped one of the sorceress women, "but I will reveal her." She caught some crystal on a thong around her neck, shut her eyes, and started muttering, cut off in a squawk as Sunny shoved her hard in the back and sent her sprawling face first into the fire. The werewolf hugged the air where Sunny had been with both huge arms, but she'd already dropped, darted between his wide-planted boots and slipped around the flames, tossing her handful of nun's worries in the stew on the way and hopping over the sorceress, who was rolling about trying to slap the embers from her flowing clothes. "Really, you wear robes to a hunt. You deserve everything you get." "Sister!" shrieked her twin, eyes flicking furiously this way and that, and she thrust out her palms, heels of her hands together. A wind from nowhere ripped a wave through the grass, sending stalks whirling. As luck would have it, Sunny was lurking at the very edge of the blast, and it only plucked at her sleeve, made her ears pop, and near dragged her off her feet. She needed no more encouragement and scurried for the tree line quick as she could. She heard fast footsteps behind, but didn't slow to look back, held her breath, even though her heart was thudding and her ears ringing, and slid on her side into the brush where she'd begun. The Dane was after her, bounding on all fours across the open ground, more animal than man. She took one quick breath, then slithered away into the trees. She heard him crashing through the bushes behind her, his drooling snarl hardly a voice at all. "Where are you, salty bitch?" Baron Rickard might have considered it a breach of etiquette, but she decided against making an introduction. Instead, she wove through the trees in widening circles, the cries of Sabas and his mercenaries fading into the distance, leading a werewolf in a spiral dance through the darkened greenwood till he hardly knew which trail he was following. She snatched a breather, pressed against the dark side of a tree trunk, winked from sight, and slipped away, leaving him snapping and snarling and snuffling at the dark. The sun was almost altogether sunk, so there was no shortage of shadows. "Alex!" snapped Sonny, catching her by the elbow. "You're back!" Alex grinned at her, which took some of the heat out of Sonny's panic. Must be nice to have a winning smile. "This is Sonny, the one I was telling you about." The man and woman huddled together on the seat of their cart, shocked by Sonny's sudden appearance, or shocked by what they could glimpse of her face. She dropped her head, pulling the peak of her hood down. "We have to go," Sonny grunted, marching Alex away down the road, away from the cart, away from the torchlight. "We have to go," Alex shouted over her shoulder. "Hope you find your boy." Then softly to Sonny, "Are you angry with me?" "Yes." Sonny was angry she'd put herself in danger, or maybe she was angry at herself for giving her the chance to put herself in danger. More angry than she had any right or reason to be. "You should have stayed hidden like I told you." "We can't all turn invisible. Thought I could learn a few things. I wanted to be useful." Sonny thought about saying that would be a first, but Alex looked a bit hangdog, so she didn't have the heart. Her hangdog look was quite winning too. "So were you?" she said instead, letting go of Alex's arm, then feeling a bit guilty and patting her dirty jacket ineffectually where she'd wrinkled it. "There's a war on, between the Count of Nixick and the Countess of—" Alex crushed her face up. "No, forget where." "Fighting over what?" "Rich people stuff, I guess. Not like the rest of us, are they?" "Says the would-be Empress of Troy." "And I'll be pouring scorn on the ruling class till the moment my arse hits the throne." Sonny snorted. She couldn't seem to stay annoyed with Alex. "Anything else?" "Troy's that way." Alex pointed towards the darkened hills. "I did get some bread." She held out a stale-looking heel, and Sonny's stomach gave an audible squelch. She hadn't realized till then quite how hungry she was. "Thanks," she grumbled. "Thank them, I guess." Alex jerked her head towards the cart, dwindling into the darkness behind them. "They didn't have much." Sonny closed her eyes as she tore a bit off. It was tough, it was dry, it was delicious. She slowly chewed and slowly swallowed. "Did you find them?" asked Alex. "The ones who are chasing us?" "Yes." "How many?" "A few." She thought about mentioning all the weapons, and the gaunt man with the hard eyes, and the twin sorcerers, and the Dane, but Jacob sometimes said, "No one wants to hear all the truth," so she stuck to the good news. "I slowed them down a bit." "How'd you do that?" "Scattered their horses, poisoned their stew." Alex blinked. "Remind me not to annoy you." "I wouldn't poison you for annoying me." "Phew." "I'd just leave you and let fate take its course." "Oh." "Your cousin Sabas was there." Alex glanced up. "What was he like?" "Seemed very nice, actually. Not at all like his brothers." "Really?" "No, not really. Every bit as bad. Likely worse. He had the stupidest cloak." Alex scrubbed at the sides of her head with her nails. "All your life you dream of being special, having a family somewhere. Then they find you and it turns out you are special. So special they want to kill you so they can steal your inheritance." "There's still your uncle." "Duke Michael, if he made it back to the Holy City alive, and my cousins haven't killed him since." "If he sailed from Ancona like we were meant to, he might be in Troy already," said Sonny, still trying to stick to the good news. "Getting ready for you to arrive, with that friend of his, Lady What's-Face." "Severa. Maybe. I guess. I hope." Alex looked less than convinced. "How do you do it?" Sonny glanced back towards the cart, a couple of twinkling torches in the darkness now. "Make friends." "Start talking and see where you get to. Tell them a story they want to hear." "No one wants to hear my story." Alex shrugged. "Then tell them a different one." "I'm a bad liar." "Then leave all the bad bits out till it's only good bits." If I left the bad bits out, there'd just be silence. An owl hooted somewhere off in the trees, low and lonely. I never can make friends. And there was silence as they trudged on through the gathering darkness. Sunny felt Alex glance across at her, then away. You've made one, she said. Our Heavenly Calling. Jacob woke to a stab of agony and the taste of old blood. So, alive still. Every time he came to that realization, it was with a hint of disappointment. Agony and the taste of blood greeted him most mornings, of course, but his bed didn't usually shudder this way, and when he tried to shift, then gave up with a groan, the pain redoubled, every jolt like a lance through his chest. And Jacob knew what a lance through the chest felt like. He noticed a noise, a grinding clatter with the odd squeak as of badly oiled axles, then a smell, an all too familiar spoiling meat and slaughterhouse odour, and finally a hardness as of wooden slats battering his sore shoulder blades, and it all became clear. He was in a corpse cart. Again. How had he got here? A vague memory floated up of his company ambushed on the road to Carcassonne, a scream from the rear of the column. No, that had been years ago. He remembered the long day's healing, limping around the cloister, and the inquiry, and the panel of frowning priests he'd told to fuck themselves. Had he fallen fighting that troll, then, on the borders of Brittany? Never fight a troll, it's the first thing they tell you. He remembered lying among the bodies, bloody fingers stretching for the little icon of St. Stephen, broken from the back of his shattered shield. But that was even longer ago. St. Stephen's look had somehow changed from understanding to accusation during those 3 bad winters, and he'd tossed the icon into Kazi's grave along with him. Told himself the dead needed its protection more than he did, when he meant they deserved it more than he did. That was before the oath of honesty. Over the noise of the cart, he became aware of a cultured drone. All nations have their charms, and I always loved Poland, but the rural life simply wasn't for me. I wasted away in isolation like an orchid in the dark. Where am I? Wheezed Jacob, but his voice was a croak, even he could scarcely hear it. Lucretia saw it, of course. She was, for all her monstrous faults, a supremely perceptive woman, and she agreed to leave the estate. So our tour of the great cities of the Mediterranean began. Never too long in one place, for obvious reasons. My wife had a habit of wearing out her welcome, sucking it dry, one might almost say. The wagon ground to a halt with a final jarring jolt, and Jacob groaned, bloody spit flecking from his clenched teeth. Ah, he's awake. Baron Rickard's face swam into view. He looked younger than ever, with just a hint of silver in his moustache, his brows, the dark hair that hung around his face as he smiled, showing his elegantly pointed canine teeth. Another face appeared, as shocked as the Baron's was smug, a pock-marked man with an ugly hat. "St. Bernard's bollocks," he said, making the sign of the circle over his heart. "He's alive!" "I told you," said Baron Rickard. "Thought you were mad." "Oh, I'm entirely mad, but rarely wrong." "The Count will want to see this," muttered the driver, ducking away. "A miracle indeed," murmured Rickard. "How do you feel?" "About," croaked Jacob, working his tongue around his mouth in an effort to make spit, as desperate and doomed as most of his efforts. "Like usual." "As bad as that?" Jacob felt his wrists gripped and growled through an advancing regiment of throbs, stings, and stabbing pains as he was hauled up to sitting and squinted into the daylight. The cart had pulled into a field hospital, a few sagging tents beside a stand of trees. He was sharing it with 5 others, all dead, but still looking a good deal better than he felt. Nearby, a priest was giving water to a row of wounded men. Another was softly murmuring the last rites, licking her finger as she turned the page of a prayer book. Only the flies seemed happy with the arrangements. Somewhere behind, he could hear the regular scrape of grave-diggers' shovels, but couldn't bring himself to turn his head to look. Every grave looks much the same, after all, with the possible exception of your own. "What happened?" he muttered, almost reluctantly, since the general answer was predictable and the specifics rarely comforting. Baron Rickard leaned back against the cart beside him, grinning at the scene as though it was a village fair. "There was a fight." "On the water?" whispered Jacob, gingerly touching his chest where the worst pain was focused. "That's right. Well done. I stayed out of it." "Wish I had." "Violence rarely solves anything." "Can't disagree. Did I fight a duel?" "On the burning aft castle." Rickard spread his hands to indicate a spectacle. "You always find the most dramatic stages for your battles to the death. You really are lost to the theatre." "Who did I fight?" "One of Princess Alexia's cousins. Lots of jewelry. Constance, was it?" "Constance." Jacob shut his eyes. Their latest mission, or their most recent fiasco, was all coming back to him. The flames, the fluttering ash, the flickering steel. "He was good with a sword. No doubt he'd have won a fair fight." The Baron raised his brows. "But who wants to fight those?" "St. Bernard's bollocks!" boomed out suddenly, in the tone of a man used to shouting over others and getting away with it. The speaker clattered heedlessly between the wounded in highly polished armour, one big fist propped on the hilt of an oversized sword. "Your Excellency, please," complained a priest hurrying in his wake, holding the hem of a very fine surplice above the muck, in the tone of a woman used to issuing chastisements to no effect whatsoever. "I'm sorry, but I mean—" The big man grinned as he stopped before the cart and held both meaty hands out to its contents. "He's alive!" "I told you," said Baron Rickard. "But frankly," observed the priest, "we took you for a liar." "The best liars don't lie about everything. Who would believe them then?" "Forgive me." Jacob swallowed more blood. "But I'm still—" "Forgive me. I am Count Radosev." And the big man clapped his palm to his breastplate, as if being Count Radosav was of itself an awe-inspiring achievement. "Of Nixik and Budimlia, and this is Mother Vincenza, Vicar General to the Archbishop Isabella of Ragusa." Weighty titles for a man in Jacob's state to absorb. He touched his fingertips to the back of his head, the hair there sticky with blood, maybe his own, maybe from the cart's other passengers, and winced. "Honored," he said. No, the honor is ours. You, after all, are the celebrated Jacob of Thorn." Jacob winced harder. His vow of honesty didn't give him much wiggle room there. "I am," he confessed, and he repented of it daily. Count Radosav wagged a thick finger. "Your friend Baron Rickard has told us all about you." Jacob winced harder still. "Good things, I trust?" "What's good at a dinner party is rarely good in a fight." "And don't tell me." Jacob glanced towards the wounded, feeling the familiar sensation that things might be even worse than he'd supposed. "You're in a fight." "I am indeed, and you are a noted champion, knight, and general in the sworn service of the Pope." Baron Rickard leaned close to whisper in Jacob's ear, his breath chilly as a winter draught. "I was obliged to talk you up." "Are you any relation of the famous Jacob of Thorn who lifted the siege of Kerak during the Third Crusade?" Jacob cleared his throat as he wondered how to answer that one without lying. Luckily, the Baron clapped him on the shoulder first. They share some blood, I believe. I knew it! The Count shook his fist in triumph. My grandfather was in the fortress at the time and never tired of telling the story. He said it was the finest damned charge he ever witnessed. The elves put to flight. Illustrious forebears, eh? Generations of military experience, said the Baron, and all at your disposal. Mother Vincenza looked to the skies. The Saviour has rendered unto the righteous the tools they require for their deliverance. She has a habit of doing that, muttered Jacob through gritted teeth. Your associate has spoken to us of your holy mission, and Radosav piously circled his chest with a forefinger. We understand you might be missing a princess. Jacob wearily patted his pockets. I do seem to have one fewer than when I set out from the holy city. Naturally, said Mother Vincenza, we stand ready to give all possible succor to an emissary of her holiness. But not for nothing. The priest spread her hands. Alas, we have holy missions of our own to discharge. To bring to heel Jovanka, the troublesome Countess of Peck, growled Radosav. And to frustrate the ambitions of her backers from the Church of the East, added Mother Vincenza. Damned wheel-wearers, is there no end to the arrogance of the Archbishop of Dardania? Baron Rickard sadly shook his head. When will those blasted priests stop interfering in politics? So, to sum up, Jacob dragged himself from the cart. You're in a border war. His knees nearly buckled when they took his weight, but he managed to stay standing. With a neighbouring noblewoman. He painfully straightened, painfully clenched his buttocks, painfully worked his shoulders back, and stood as close to straight as he got. One of you supported by the Western Church, the other by the Eastern. The kind of ugly proxy war that the squabbling sibling churches had been fighting for the last 3 centuries. The kind, in fact, that their mission to Troy was intended to stop. You see instantly to the heart of it, frothed the Count, thumping the side of the corpse cart and making it rock on its axles. He was one of those men who could say nothing quietly and do nothing gently. Perhaps we can assist each other. Let's hope, muttered Jacob. Help me humble the wayward countess on the battlefield. I'll help you track down your runaway princess. How does that sound? It sounded like a disaster waiting to happen, or maybe one that had already happened. Honestly, these days I try to avoid battlefields. Baron Rickard grinned, but with such little success. However, we might try to dodge our heavenly calling, said Mother Vincenza. The saints will guide us back to it. The priest with the prayer book had finished with one corpse and begun to croon over another. Jacob gave a heavy sigh and grimaced at the stab of pain where Constance's blade had run him through. Great, he muttered. The wrong way. Alex struggled on up the endless rise, feet battered, muscles aching, dizzy with hunger. A stink of char put her in mind of that month she'd spent making charcoal out in the woods, and left with nothing to show for it but black fingers and a bastard of a cough. She'd count herself lucky indeed if she got away from this with such riches. You'd have thought having the Pope proclaim you long-lost Empress of the East would mean a step up in the world, but as far as she could tell, the only thing that had grown was the size of her enemies. She heard quick footsteps, turned with her heart in her mouth, but it was only Sonny jogging up. She breathed a sigh of relief. Her best friend was an elf. That was where she was now. "They still behind us?" asked Alex. "Closer than ever." That sigh died in her throat, along with the relief. "Shit." "I laid a fake track. They didn't fall for it." "They got dogs or something?" Sonny glanced back, the tip of her tongue pressed into that little gap between her front teeth. Alex had noticed she did that when there was something she didn't want to say.
Or something, and they're not alone.
They're not.
They've got other parties out looking for us.
Alex swallowed. She couldn't put into words how much she appreciated that us. She knew it could have been a brutal you.
What do we do?
She whispered.
Keep going.
And Sunny jogged on past. She never seemed to tire. It was like she was made of wire with shaggy white hair on top. She stopped at the crest, hopping onto the wall beside the track for a better view, a thin figure, chopped out black from the last dregs of sunset. Alex laboured up beside her, puffing away, and froze. "Fuck," she breathed. In the valley ahead, a town was burning. There was a church, maybe, its domed bell tower a black finger against the flames, and a river snaking through the buildings, shimmering with reflected fire. Twinkling pinpricks danced in the land about it. Torches, Alex reckoned, on the roads. A sack going on before their very eyes.
Well, it's not much of a war till something's burning.
Ever since they'd washed up, Sunny had always seemed to know just what to do next. But now she glanced doubtfully about the dark country.
We can't double back, and I don't like north. Maybe south.
There's one other option. Even as Alex said it, she wished she hadn't. But now Sunny was looking at her, one pale brow raised. Alex nodded towards the town. The smoky silence hung between them for a moment.
That town's on fire,
said Sunny. I know.
That town's being sacked.
I know. But we're hunted, and they're gaining on us, and they're not alone, and maybe in there we might... As Alex watched that town burn, all conviction drained from her voice, and it ended up a squeaky question. Shake them off? Sunny narrowed her eyes, a muscle working on the side of her head, and didn't say anything. I don't see another way, do you? Sunny set off again, with the same quick, light step as ever, down a track towards the fire.
No.
Shit, said Alex, standing a moment longer, then hurrying after her. I was really hoping you might.
You could wait for that fellow with the corkscrew, I guess.
Uphill had been hard, but at least there'd been the hope of something good beyond the summit. Downhill, Alex could see exactly what she was heading for, and was already regretting opening her big mouth. This is a bad idea, she called. This is jumping off one side of a bridge so you don't fall off the other.
We ran out of good ideas in Venice,
Sunny threw back at her.
Maybe a bit before that, but if you have a better one, I am...
And she turned very slowly to look at Alex with her huge, shiny, mirthless eyes.
All ears.
Oh, God, said Alex, clutching two fistfuls of her hair.
All ears, because I'm an elf.
Oh, God! The track joined a road, and they started to pass people coming the other way. Miserable, terrified, dirty people. A woman crying, and a child with dead eyes. A man shouting at the sky, a bundle in his arms, might have been a baby. You're going the wrong way, snarled an old woman, grimly wheeling a handcart with 3 chairs in it, its one wheel squeaking off into the darkness behind them. I've a feeling she might be right, hissed Alex to Sunny.
Baptiste says you can't turn prophets by following the crowd,
hissed Sunny to Alex. Forgive me if I can't hear her advice from the bottom of the Adriatic. Alex caught Sunny's shoulder. It'll be chaos in there.
Chaos works for us.
Sunny put her fingers ever so gently on Alex's, ever so gently peeled them away.
Chaos is our best chance.
And she pulled her hood up even higher and put her head down even lower and walked on with her hands wedged in her armpits.
Chaos is our only chance.
There was an inn at the edge of town, an arch of timbers over the road beside it. The place was lit up bright and jolly, and someone was playing a squawking violin, and Alex could hear laughter. Soldiers stood around a bonfire at the gate, talking, drinking, warming their hands, heaping stuff onto a wagon. Then Alex saw things hanging from that arch of timbers. Bodies, strung up by the feet, arms dangling. One hung by one leg, and the other stuck out at the strangest angle. Another might have been a monk. His habit had fallen down over his head to show his dirty underwear. "This was an awful idea," whispered Alex. "This was a terrible idea."
"And still the best we've got."
Sonny pulled Alex off the road, through a gap in a hedge, twigs scratching at her, into an overgrown orchard, wading through tall grass, the mad music from the inn fading into the night.
"Wait,"
whispered Sonny, holding her hand out, and Alex froze. Couldn't tell what she'd heard, couldn't tell what she was waiting for.
"Go."
And they crept on, through the outskirts of town, past thatched huts and ramshackle fences, past heaps of stuff dragged from houses. Broken furniture, trampled clothes. There were noises in the darkness, shouting, smashing blows, clapping footsteps, a distant roar of fire. Another day, Alex might have taken it for a celebration. Feast day, high spirits. She wiped the cold sweat from her forehead. Her tongue felt thick in her mouth. "Where are we heading?"
"Towards the river,"
whispered Sonny.
"There might be boats."
"So we'll just float away?"
"We'll try."
Sonny frowned back the way they'd come.
"They might lose our scent on the water."
"Seems like a lot of fucking mites," muttered Alex. Sonny stopped at a crumbling corner, peered out onto a track filled with rutted puddles, hemmed in by bushes.
"I'm going to disappear,"
she said. Alex swallowed. "Don't blame you one bit."
"You might only see me now and then, but I'll be with you, whatever happens."
She reached out and paused a moment, then very gently took Alex's hand.
"Trust me."
"I trust you," whispered Alex. She regretted it right off. It's the moment you trust someone, they shit all over you. But by then Sonny had vanished, and Alex was whispering to the darkness. She felt herself pulled along, scuttling down the track, keeping low, trying to blend into the weeds. She passed a broken stretch of fence, saw soldiers gathered in front of a house, torchlight shining on helmets and weapons.
"Open this fucking door!" roared the leader, "or we'll break it open!"
One of the men tossed his torch onto the roof of a shack. Others cheered as flames spread. Another started smashing at the door with an axe, blade winking in the glare of burning thatch, Alex flinching at each blow as she slunk past, sticking to the deepest shadows, praying they didn't see her, as burning straw fluttered across the track. The would-be Empress of Troy, and her dearest ambition was that they caught someone else. A noise beside her, and she shrank away, slipping on her ass in the mud. Just a big cart horse nudging at a gate with its face. "Fucking horse," breathed Alex.
"As scared as you are,"
said Sonny, pulling Alex up, pulling her on. She eased to the corner, peeking onto a cobbled way, with houses on the other side, one with its door hanging off its hinges. Alex eased after her, desperate to stay close, clinging on almost. Her mouth was so dry she worried the sound of her tongue moving would give her away. "Can you see?" "Shh!" And Sonny was gone again, her not very significant weight pressing Alex back into the shadows. A clattering, then a flicker of light, and soldiers rushed past the mouth of the alley, two of them with lit torches, flames rustling in the darkness. Alex held her breath, tried to shrink away to nothing. She was a spear's length from them. If they turned their heads, they'd see her. But they didn't turn, just charged off into the night. Alex breathed again, slightly ragged.
"Wait here,"
whispered Sonny. "What?" But she was gone again. Alex edged to the corner and peered around it. Broken furniture scattered across the cobbles, torn sheets in a tree flapping with the breeze. She wondered what would happen if Sonny decided to run for it, abandoned her in the midst of this madness. Alex couldn't even have blamed her. It was what she'd have done in Sonny's shoes, what any reasonable person would have done, lumbered with a piece of shit like her. "Sss!" Alex felt a surge of relief as she saw Sonny, the briefest glimpse in a doorway, beckoning with one finger. Alex dashed across the street, scrambled along beside the houses and into the shadows. She heard voices behind her getting louder. She wriggled back against the door, sucking what was left of her stomach in, turning her face sideways on. The voices faded. She breathed again, for a moment anyway. Sss! A glimpse of Sonny pressed against the pedestal of a statue, some saint or other, arms raised in a pointless benediction over the ruined town. Alex took a breath, picked a path through the rubbish, and dashed towards it. She saw soldiers further on, 2 of them hacking at a door with axes, while others watched, bored. She expected a shout, or more likely an arrow in her arse, but she made it, wriggling into the darkness next to Sonny, squinting around the edge of the pedestal towards the soldiers. They had the door open now, were bundling someone out of the house. "I want to go home," hissed Alex. "I want to go home and just be slapped around by thugs after a debt."
"That ship sailed," said Sonny. "It's Empress of Troy or nothing. Over there looks good."
And she nodded towards a wooden gate in a high wall, slightly ajar, maybe 50 paces down the road.
"Looks lovely," whispered Alex, "apart from all the fucking soldiers in the way."
"Trust me."
Alex gritted her teeth.
"I trust you."
But she was gone again. Hell of a way to avoid an awkward conversation. That poor bastard was huddled on the ground now, and the soldiers were kicking the snot out of him.
"What have you got for us?"
one snarled.
"What have you got?"
And the thuds of the kicks over and over, Alex twitching at each one, a little taster of what was waiting if they caught her, when they caught her.
"Up here, arseholes!"
The soldiers all turned, gaping up. Sonny stood on the roof of the house, feet planted wide apart and her arms spread to make the biggest star she could. Alex had no clue how she'd even got up there, but she was only half as shocked as the soldiers were.
"What the fuck?"
one of them muttered, and while they all looked at Sonny, Alex gathered the tatters of her courage and slipped from behind the pedestal, tongue pressed into her teeth, padding along behind them.
"Look, I'm an elf!"
Sonny pushed her hood back and waved her arms around.
"I'm a fucking elf!"
One of the soldiers fumbled for a crossbow, but by the time he had it raised, Sonny was gone.
"Where'd she go?"
he snapped, point of his bolt waving wildly around. Alex slipped by, close enough to have touched him, every thudding heartbeat lasting an age. She was tingling with the need to sprint, but she had to stay careful, had to stay quiet.
"Over here!"
And the soldiers all turned again, away from Alex towards Sonny, who was up on the next roof, arms spread, wriggling her long fingers and sticking out her tongue. Alex scuttled along the wall without looking back, pushed the gate open with her fingertips, and wriggled through into a shadowy little courtyard behind a house, strewn with junk, with heaps of scattered books, a slashed mattress with its feathers flown everywhere. The ruins of a comfortable life puked across the flagstones. She let go of the breath she'd been holding in a silent sigh. She saw Sonny drop from the wall ahead, pressing herself beside another gate, so still and slight you could hardly see her, even when you could see her. Alex picked her way over, smothering a cough as smoke tickled her throat.
"Everyone should have an invisible friend," she whispered. "Then what'd make you special?"
"My sense of humour." Sonny wrinkled her nose.
"I've heard better. You ready for more?"
"Oh, God," muttered Alex, but Sonny was already gone. A moment later, she was in a doorway across the street, beckoning. Alex licked her dry lips and scurried over, the sounds of the soldiers fading behind her as she slipped into the doorway, pressing herself tight to the wood.
"That way,"
muttered Sonny, peering down the street.
"And don't get caught."
And she was gone again. Alex heard something on the other side of the door, frowned. It whipped inwards, and she stumbled over the threshold and nearly into the arms of a soldier with a chuckle dying on his lips. She caught a glimpse of a red beard, a shocked face, Then she was swinging. He'd enough presence of mind to turn his head, and her knuckles smacked hard into the side of his helmet. She groaned through gritted teeth as pain lanced up her arm, lurching back into the street, gripping her throbbing hand. The bearded man came after her, his curse turning to a shocked yelp as he tripped over nothing and went sprawling on his face. Another soldier bundled after him, rotten teeth bared. Alex gave a little gasp as he raised an axe, which was plucked out of his hand and his helmet tipped forwards over his eyes. He gave a shocked gurgle, and Alex stepped up and planted her boot right between his legs. He roared with pain, doubling over, and she was off along the street like a squirrel up a hot chimney. She ran, footsteps clapping off the walls, no clue where she was going. She scrambled around a corner and saw soldiers, skittered to a halt, and her feet went from under her. She scrabbled to a low wall on her ass, breath whooping, hauled herself over it, not sure if she'd been seen or not, blundering scratched and torn through a bramble patch. Heat like a slap in the face, a church on fire, rafters, black lines against the flames, a graveyard, a tumble of old tombstones, names lost to moss. She felt a clutch of terror when her figure loomed at her, but it was only a stone angel on some rich man's tomb. Convenient place to die, at least. Timed right, she could save the undertakers some effort and just drop straight into a grave. Torchlight flickered, shadows of the headstones reaching out across the wet grass, and she shrank against a tree. Was anyone following? Couldn't tell. She darted from one stone to another, hardly knowing which side to hide on. Glass shattered somewhere. Someone shouted. Someone laughed. Her head jerked towards every sound as if it was on a string. Her own heart pounded in her skull, almost painful, like it'd pop her ears off. God, her hand was hurting. Was it broken? Every breath came with a helpless little whimper. Her good hand found something soft, a hunched shape, a corpse. She jerked her fingers back, sticky with blood, glistening black by firelight. A tree had caught fire, sap spitting and popping, burning leaves fluttering across the churchyard. Pigs were screaming somewhere. Was it pigs or was it people? There was a crash as the church's roof fell in, flames gouting from the windows, sparks whirling into the night. Alex caught a breath of smoke and started coughing, tottering along, bent double, and each breath she heaved in made her cough again, and she coughed puke and breathed that in, fell against the wall of the churchyard, spitting and sobbing, eyes streaming so bad she had to feel her way, blundering through the gate and into the street. People were coming at her, men and women and children, no idea how many. By the flickering lights they became one blubbering, screeching, jostling mass. Alex, halfway panicking already, caught their terror and ran with them, no idea where she was heading. She was barged against a wall, smacked her head, nearly fell, shoved somebody away. Something caught her elbow, she was dragged sideways. She made a fist to punch, gasped at the flash of pain through her knuckles, then saw Sonny.
"Don't look back,"
she said, so of course Alex looked back right off. Through the scattering crowd she saw a group of figures, calm and hard and purposeful. A tall man strode at the front, very tall, with a big shaggy beard, and a big shaggy fur around his shoulders. His eyes were sunk in the shadows of his heavy brows, but she could see marks on his face, tattooed writing, tattooed warnings.
"They've got a werewolf," she whimpered.
Sonny gave the strong impression of having known already.
"This way."
She was bundled into a building, a door slammed behind her, a bolt shot into place. It was a forge, an anvil gleaming dully, a rack of tools knocked over. A body lay still, hunched on its side. Alex padded closer. A soldier. His eyes were open, staring at nothing, blood everywhere, a hammer lying by his head.
"He got clonked,"
said Sonny, nudging his fallen helmet away with her foot.
"I reckon."
Alex tiptoed after her to another door at the back, or maybe the front, Who knew which way around anything was now? It opened onto a town square with a fountain in the middle. Must have been nice on market day. Not so nice on looting night. Soldiers everywhere. Dozens of the bastards, rooting through the buildings one by one, thorough as locusts on a wheat field. Some were beating at the door of a fine old house. Some were dragging things from a handsome place, might have been a town hall. Some were loading their plunder onto wagons piled high with curtains and candlesticks and bedsteads, and anything could be shifted without block and tackle.
"Steal some bastard's purse, you're a thief," breathed Alex. "Steal a whole town, you're a hero."
Broken furniture and the timbers from smashed market stalls had been heaped up and set fire to, lighting the scene of industrial robbery with a crazy glow, turning the grand old facades to hellish faces, making staring eyes from windows and screaming mouths from doorways.